Gamepads. Wait, hold up. Wrong hemisphere. Gamepads. That thing what you hold in your hand and press buttons with to make the little guy on the screen do things. Now, before Mr. Nintendo had a religious experience and gave us the cross, the most common form of game input was the stick. Sometimes with a little knob at the end. But the pad is a different thing entirely, and as games got more complex, it kept evolving and evolving, and just like with evolution, sometimes it would go in some bizarre directions. But I think the basics are all here, right? You've got circular buttons, analog or digital direction controls, buttons meant for user interface interaction more than movement, like start and select, and eventually shoulder buttons so your other fingers would have something to do. But say you're a third-party hardware manufacturer and you want to stand out. The quick shot. It looks weird, but in the end it's basically the same thing, right? You've got directional control and a couple of buttons, you know, and it does the same thing as a regular NES pad would, except you get to look real cool while playing. Or you make a controller that targets a specific demographic, like babies. Editor Bob here. The astute among you may have noticed that the green screen effect just turned off. This is because this gamepad's shoulder buttons are basically the exact same shade of green as the Elgato mouse mat I overpaid for, and masking them back in would take me several weeks. This is for the PlayStation 1. It's branded with Adibu, which is like a kid's educational software thing, and it looks ridiculous and very uncomfortable. My version is missing the little rubber pad here. This little face in the middle rotates when there's rumble, and the shoulder buttons are gargantuan. But then if you want a more sophisticated audience, you do something like the Commander Super Joypad for PlayStation, where you put some of the shoulder buttons here on the side to make it a 6-button controller, I guess for fighting games, and you add what I believe is the most amount of toggle switches on a single controller. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Incredible. Also, very uncomfortable. The point is, I love weird controllers. I love something that is unconventional, stupid, weird, does not work the way you would think it would, or is supposed to, or is not meant for human hands whatsoever. I love when companies try to do something by thinking outside of the box. Speaking of boxes, let's talk Microsoft, the evil megacorporation we all love so much. Whether it's constantly making the operating system and software we're forced to use worse for the sake of extra profit for the shareholders, stuffing their shitty AI into every single free crevice they can find with straight-up religious fervor, or, most importantly, being complicit in committing genocide, there's lots of reasons to not be a fan of Microsoft. I predict they're not going to survive the upcoming bubble pop in one piece, and I encourage you to do whatever you can to speed up that process. Anyway, in a more innocent time, they released this monstrosity for the original Xbox, lovingly referred to as the Duke. Now, it was always mocked for its size, and I have to say, I don't have very small hands, but damn. But I want to focus on something else. First, what was the idea with the black and white buttons? What is their purpose? Why not just make a straight up 6-button controller? You have the room. Why not label them with letters, and why offset them? It's so strange to me that they put an afterthought onto their final product. And second, look at the shape of the buttons. They're not circular. Why aren't they circles? I'm not here to answer questions, just ask them. And before the Xbox, Microsoft made hardware for PCs as well, releasing various pads and other peripherals under the Sidewinder brand, some of which will ask questions far more potent than why no circle. I've looked at these before in their own video, which you can watch after this one, but I still want to show them off again because they're kind of cool. This is the Sidewinder Gamepad Pro, and aside from having a cool shape and a cool color, it also has some other interesting things, such as a shift button, which would give you extra buttons using the software, and this D-pad, which is not a D-pad, it's like a spongy kind of thing. I don't know how it's still soft after all these years. This directional input, which is both a D-pad and an analog control of some sort. You can determine it by software whether or not it's analog. I don't think it would feel very good as either analog or digital, to be honest. It feels very spongy, but it's kind of fascinating, isn't it, that it's starting to integrate this analog stuff without really creating more room for a stick or whatever. Editor Bob here. Here's a picture of the big prototype original Xbox, and wouldn't you know it, there's a Sidewinder controller. Very illustrative of how it's a transitional piece of hardware, I think. And then there is the Sidewinder Freestyle Pro with its very suggestive shape. Again, you can see a shift button, and what sets this one apart is that it has motion controls, useful for flight games, and I believe it came packed in with Motocross Madness. And also for throttle for the flight games, a scroll wheel, which is really cool. Here's the good stuff. The Sidewinder Dual Strike. Okay, what is going on here? This functions kind of like a trackball, but not really. It measures movement, obviously, but it also has switches at the end that help the software know when you're pushing to its full extent. It's designed for like shooters, first-person shooters, I guess. You aim this like a gun. It has triggers. These buttons are in a weird shape because they're kind of half a D-pad too. And this is not an analog stick. This is like a clicky hat switch. Very interesting. I played through all of Half-Life 1, all of Half-Life 2, and the episodes with this baby. You can check out the VODs. It took a little bit of configuring to get it set up, and it could use maybe a few more inputs, but it kind of works. You get used to it. There are fan-made apps to make it more usable on modern Windows. It was totally doable, quite frankly. And it just looks so bizarre. This is a beautiful piece that I love. Editor Bob here. So, the Sidewinder Dual Strike will get picked up as a controller by modern Windows no problem, but it will interpret this hinge as a joystick. It'll technically work, but it won't feel right. As I said, it has switches at the end of each axis to tell the game when you're pushing it to the end, and it's supposed to feel more like a Wiimote in pointer mode. But fear not, getting it working as intended just takes a couple of steps. First, go to nogamesforgenocide.com and sign the pledge. It's literally the least you can do. Then download this app created by Oddwork I've linked in the description. Once you've set it up, it'll make the Dual Strike behave properly like a mouse. After this, you could use something like Joy2Key or Steam Input to configure the rest of the buttons as keyboard inputs, because you don't actually want a game thinking this is a gamepad, but just a weird mouse and keyboard. All that's left then is making sure those keys match the controls in your game, and you're good to go. It's been a while since I've done this, but I do recall a bug creating log files that would fill up my entire disk if the app is running but the controller isn't plugged in, so probably a good idea to take note of that. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled programming. But if we fast forward a bit, Microsoft also released something funky for the Xbox 360. This is what is it called? The Speed Wheel, which isn't even a wheel. This is obviously meant for racing games. It has motion controls in it. It has really fat, nice analog triggers for throttle and brake, but it's lacking normal shoulder buttons. It's lacking some of the inputs that the regular Xbox 360 controller has, which makes this less useful for even racing games where you can't rebind the controls. And also, these face buttons are tiny.
Hello dear Alien Pop Video viewer. Are you tired of the modern internet? Are you looking for a place where you can discuss games, media, your life, and anything without big tech breathing down your neck? A place with old school internet vibes, but based on modern open source software? A place with signatures, GIFs, chat rooms, and a zero tolerance policy for bigotry? Then join us at the Underscore, an old school forum with a modern twist.
Trust is a Dutch computer hardware and peripheral company that makes stuff like keyboards and mice and headsets and all that boring office stuff, probably in gamer versions as well. Well, they used to make those things. I'm sure nowadays all they do is slap their logo on whatever cheap shit they can get on Alibaba. But even back in the day, they were known as a budget outfit. Regardless, I've got some specimens to show you. The late 90s and early 2000s were a real wild west for PC gamepads. The Xbox 360 pad hadn't standardized things yet, and even little companies like Trust could go buck wild. First, by just straight up ripping off Microsoft. Yeah, this is a Freestyle Pro copy. They just made it pointier, and also this isn't a real full scroll wheel. It has limits, so it only scrolls up and down a certain amount. It's also a lot less comfortable, to be honest. It's and it feels cheaper. Like the plastic that Microsoft used for these Sidewinders is real robust. This feels super light and not great and not really well made for the hand. And also, something that Trust apparently really enjoyed, weird button shapes. These little shark tooth shaped buttons. I don't know, they thought that would set them apart, I suppose. And they would continue to experiment, because what the hell is this? Oh, just look how cute it is. Look at that little face. It has a little nose. Again, the same kind of scroll wheel that is not a full scroll wheel. This is actually just an analog slider. This is an input. This is the roundest D-pad that has ever existed in the world. It is entirely circular to the full amount. These buttons are a weird shape, and it has tiny little shoulder buttons. You can even press the D-pad down as one button, and I don't know if that counts as an input or not, but that would make playing certain games really difficult. But it's just adorable. Look at that little face. How could you deny this? And the weirdness doesn't stop there. This is the Predator. Again, we've got the same extremely round D-pad that you can just press as a button. Don't mind the weird speckles on it. This used to be covered in one of those gross rubbery coatings that would degrade and turn to oil, but it has been removed, and this is just the residue. The buttons, again, are like, they're not so much shark tooth now, they're starting to become inverted teardrops. It has another one of those scroll wheels, but this time there's something special about it. As you can see, it's spring-loaded. But not only that, you can turn off the spring mechanically. Isn't that neat? And last and certainly not least from Trust, another Predator. It almost looks like a normal controller, except for the shape and the color and the round D-pad and the button shapes and how close these sticks are together. But look, it has 2 sticks. It has 2 shoulder buttons, although there's barely any feedback on this. Again, a beautiful display piece. I would never play anything with this voluntarily for free. But all of this has been a warm-up. The absolute king of weird controllers is Cytec. This one isn't even so bad. Round buttons, directional input, some decent shoulder buttons as well. As you can tell, it's game port. This thing is ancient. One cool thing it has that I unfortunately don't is this little recess here held a little stick that you could screw into the D-pad to make it like a little joystick. And this little guy, you know, a cute, fairly ergonomic little gamepad to play your original Duke Nukems on or whatever. Then they went ahead and made things a lot more complicated. This looks like a regular dual analog controller at the outset, right? Except it's missing a stick, and there's some other weird stuff going on. The D-pad, again, is round and disgusting. It has 4 whole shoulder buttons, how modern. It has, like, shift buttons and analog and digital mode selects. It has this, which is nothing at all. It's just a piece of plastic. It has a scroll wheel, again with limits, but still cool for throttle and whatever. And it has a nuclear-powered analog stick. Wow, cool. What is this? If you press this button and then try your best to rotate, you get an axis lock. Why did they bother putting in a mechanical axis lock? What was the idea here? And again, on the other axis. I mean, new features is cool, but why have room for a stick here and not have anything? They made something a little more traditional here. Again, you got kind of the Xbox style black and white buttons, although it looks closer to like a proper 6-button controller. You've got an FPS button here that did something to the analog sticks, but the analog sticks is the weird part here because square gates on the analog stick. And I'm just wondering what kind of games they thought people would play with this. But these are just an introduction. These are like weird, but you kind of get how they work. Forget about these. Forget everything you know about gamepads. This is the Cytec Cyborg 3D Digital. Ah! Let's look at the input. We've got some toggle switches. Alright, even down here. Alright, we've got these funky, flappy little analog triggers. We've got buttons here on the handles. We've got a throttle wheel here by the right index finger and more shoulder buttons. We have face buttons in the most ergonomic positions you can possibly imagine. We've got a D-pad. We've got a very robust metal analog stick. Really, really good for proper flight simulators. And a little wheel for steering. This has everything. And I can't imagine how one is supposed to use it. I think you're supposed to hold it on your lap like this, because the cable comes out like this. So you're supposed to kind of hold it on your lap like you're, I don't know, man, like you're using an app cruncher or something. This, unfortunately, is another ancient GamePort exclusive thing, but that's why I have the Cyborg 3D USB. There you go. I've tried to play things with this. It's not great. One of the problems is the wheel of this one is a little bit stiff. It also comes with one of these rubber grips. It's supposed to come with both of them, but you can see how easy it would be to lose them. I have no words. It's as if someone described to a caveman what a gamepad was, and then put another caveman in charge of an entire factory just to see what would come out. This is the king. This takes the cake of everything I own, of everything I've encountered online, all the research I've done into strange controllers. Nothing is as bizarre as this. I also have another video where I look at these weirdos in more detail and even play some games with them, so check that out if you want. Hello? Is this thing on? They're telling me I have to promote the Patreon. There's many benefits to the Alien Bob Patreon, such as you get to support Bob and help make more videos and related things. You will get exclusive behind-the-scenes articles on big videos, that's capital B and capital V, featuring things like thoughts on the process and cut content. Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. You will get a credit in everything Bob makes, including videos, streams, and more. It says here that it's the greatest way to immortalize your legacy since the pyramids. Alright, sure. You will get access to an exclusive behind-the-scenes Discord channel, or if you're too cool for Discord, an exclusive behind-the-scenes forum category where Bob will post progress updates and such. All paid tiers give the same rewards because Bob is cool like that, and if you can't contribute right now, grab a free membership so Patreon can spam you with emails and hook you in once payday arrives. What? Yeah, that's how it's supposed to work, isn't it? Anyway, Alien Bob Patreon. Patreon.com/AlienBob. One word. Join today! Or not, I guess. What do I care? The weird facial characteristics remind me a little bit of the original Steam controller, which is getting a sequel soon. The original Steam controller is widely derided, but I don't think it's that bad, actually. It has a lot of interesting inputs, it requires a lot of software tuning, and it requires a lot of learning to really make it work for whatever game you're using it with. But that's good for the brain, you know? That keeps the neuroplasticity up. One thing I really don't like about it is these shoulder buttons are like huge and bulbous and very uncomfortable. But you know, it's a neat little artifact. And I guess I bought this when it was cheap, when they were throwing these away on Steam. But it's a nice addition to my collection of weird controllers, right? And clearly there is still a legacy in this that will be continued with the new Steam controller, even if that is highly evolved from the lessons they learned with the Steam Deck. And last, and I don't know if this counts as a weird controller, but I want to wrap up with it because this is actually my favorite stick layout. And I dislike that it died with the Wii U. Now this one in particular is a bootleg, so it doesn't work on my PC natively without an adapter. But there's a bunch of companies now that are making really good third-party controllers, and I wish one of them would use the Wii U Pro Controller as a template. Anyway, that was just a quick look. Oh my god, you guys, I forgot. I have more. These were hidden away pretty good. I'm gonna have to find a way to show them off in a different setup. Here's the Wingman Rumble Pad. And you can see why this attracted me. Square buttons in a weird arc shape. Editor Bob here, again. So square face buttons is another interesting rabbit hole to go down. The early Famicom had them. The Atari Lynx 2 also had them, although the tops are concave to nicely fit your fingers. And the WonderSwan's buttons aren't square, but they do have corners, I think the general consensus seems to be that square buttons have a higher chance of binding up in the controller housing, though I will admit circular buttons are just more aesthetically pleasing too. Anyway, that's just a quick interruption to prevent any well actuallys in the comments. A throttle slider and square gates.
Objection!
What a beautiful little device. Also, big ass sticker on the handle. Thanks, Logitech. This is the Thrustmaster Rage 3D digital PC gamepad for use with Windows 95. Check out that cool little CG Knight dude. 3D control pad. Comes with a free Motor Racer game demo. That game was awesome, by the way. The hell were they thinking? So you've got this half UFO shaped thing here with these weird tiny little pill shaped buttons. And what is this? It's not an analog stick, it's an analog ball, but more importantly, it has a mechanical switch to turn it into a more of a D-pad or like 8-way clicky style thing. Kinda cool. It's not that uncomfortable in the hand, I must say, although I can only hold it with one right now. But still, what a thing. Anyway, that was just a quick look at some of the weirder parts of my collection. Look, I don't know what to tell you. I love these things. I love every single one of them. They're weird, they're stupid, they make no sense. They're just like me. I have a wish list really long with many more weirdos on them. Of course, none of them as weird as this. But they all deserve love, you know? I wish I could get like a room big enough to hang them all on a wall and have a beautiful display of them. So group discussion, sound off in the comments. What's your favorite weird controller and why? Editor Bob here, just one last time. Thank you so much for watching the video. Yell "Today is the day" in the comments if you made it this far.